So we've just kicked off a brand new series called Choices,
Yes.
and everybody's got lots of choices every day, but some people have some really major decisions, going on in their lives. So we want to give people as much opportunity to pursue wisdom as possible. And so I'm excited about this. You and I are just going to talk between services about some of the questions people may have. And this is called Behind the Sermon, so that we just pop back in the green room and are talking between services.
Yeah. One thing I loved about today is this card that we printed for people to take home with all the information, all the questions that you talked about today.
Yeah.
And it's also available on the Cub Live app. So you
Yeah.
can go on there and download it and take advantage of all that has to offer. So two of the questions that I want to start with that you talked about today were, where do I go to get wisdom?
Yeah.
What are my primary sources for advice? Can you tell me, why are these questions important for them to know about themselves?
Well, I know where I get wisdom. Is right across the table from me.
But do you listen?
And right, exactly. We laughed about that in the service, that, you'll tell me things and I'm like, then I hear it from someone else. I'm like, that was such a great revelation. You're like,
Yeah.
I've been telling you that for years. And I'm sure that's frustrating for people that are in your shoes. I felt that same way being married to you. But sometimes we need to hear it from someone else.
Yeah.
I think. But you know what that's done for me is when you've told me something and then I hear it from somebody else and I'm like, oh, this is so amazing. And you're like, I've said that before. What it does is it consistently showed me that I could trust what you were telling me,
Good.
that you really did have wisdom. It wasn't just bias. Because I think sometimes when we're married to someone, or the people, maybe parents or best friends, they give us wisdom and we reject it because we think, they have like a reason, they have an agenda
Yeah.
for why they're telling me that. So when you hear it from somebody on the outside and on the inside, and it confirms
Yeah.
the inner circle and outer circle, I think that really helps us know that we're on the right track.
Yeah.
But we did ask those two questions. Where do you get wisdom? What are your main sources? And the reason people need to know where they get their wisdom is because they're trying to make big decisions. We all have major decisions. And I would want to know about myself, what is my process for making decisions?
Yeah.
Do I make them based on emotional pressure or peer pressure or people pleasing, which we've talked about? People pleasing can be a major reason why we're forced to make decisions. I had to make a really big decision this week, and you were telling me one thing, and my people pleasing was telling me something else because I didn't want to let somebody down.
Yeah.
And so you saw me struggle with that, and I put it off and I put it off. And then I came to the decision to go, you know what? Stacey really knows what's best for me. A lot of times I'll try to bite off so much way in advance and I'll go, I can do it. And you're like, that's too much. And I'll go, no, I can do it. Once I get there, I'll have the energy. And then once I get there, I always go, why did you let me do this to myself? So I think knowing we're asking these introspective, reflective questions that we have on the card and on the app, because you need to know what's your process for making decisions. And sometimes if I do have to make a decision that is uncomfortable, it's not really what I want to do, I have to keep the why like in front of myself. I made this decision. I knew it was going to be difficult, but this is why. You and I together leading this great church, we had to make a lot of hard decisions.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a process of going, okay, we consult one another. We have to be in unity, right?
Right.
And then we also consult outside, because wisdom is found in a council of many advisors. So we'll get other people's wisdom and see how it measures. And obviously we pray about it, right?
Right.
But other people, I'm tempted too to cherry pick information. I think a lot of people, if we were to really be honest with ourselves, where do we get wisdom? It would be Google or TikTok or online. But the problem with that is it's just information without accountability. And information without accountability does not equal transformation. You're transformed by a revelation when you've actually had to apply it to yourself. And accountability requires humility. And you remember things that cost you something.
Right.
When it costs you your pride, you remember it.
Yes.
That's why sometimes we have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Right?
one of the greatest things that I took away from today's word, I took a picture of on the screen, and it says, "The pursuit of wisdom changes the goal of our lives from temporary pleasure to eternal purpose."
Yeah. Yeah, because if we don't have wisdom as the ultimate goal, then the pressure of today is, what do I want today? What are my feelings today?
Yeah.
So we asked the questions in this card this week, and they may seem like weird questions, but it's about our present. It says, like, what is the biggest contributor to how I feel about my present? People may wonder, why are you asking me that question? Well, because if you feel extreme disappointment or discouragement, you're not heavenly minded.
Right.
You're disappointed because you're putting so much pressure on the present to check all the boxes and fulfill every dream and goal you've ever had. How many times have I ruined a moment? Because you know this. Because I have all these high expectations for it, and it's not measuring up. Like, it's like going to a picnic and the flies are there and you didn't plan for the flies. And so your focus is on, but the flies are ruining, and you always steer me back toward, wait a minute, don't ruin this moment. You've worked really hard to have what we have here.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the right thing.
Right.
So our focus in the present, whether it's wisdom, an eternal pursuit like that, or whether it is temporary temptation. I love that temptation has the word tempt in it, but it also comes from the root word for temporary. So it's like we are tempted with temporary things, not eternal things. And I think that puts that quote into perspective, is if you can really be honest about, I'm disappointed in my present. Why? Are you beating yourself up over the past? Or do you not have a future goal? And if wisdom is your pursuit, then it helps put into perspective all the mistakes you've made in the past. You're like, okay, you live and you learn. So what did I do wrong? Whatever I did wrong, then I can go, that now I will not do that again. I learned from that. And so I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Like Paul said,
Yeah.
I forget this one thing I do. I forget the thing behind me, and I press toward the future, which is the eternal prize. And once you have your eye on eternity, you can say, then I'm not tempted with selling out in the present.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any advice for giving advice?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I think when we talk about stuff like this and we're really encouraging our congregation and our online audience to seek wisdom. In fact, our challenge for the week that's on the back of this card, it says, seek wisdom from an honorable advisor, and which is an unbiased advisor, someone whose life and walk with Christ you admire and respect. So we gave two options. If they know you well, you ask them this: in observing my life, how can I improve, and what advice would you give me? And if they don't know you, then we're saying, ask them, what's the best piece of advice you've received and why? Well, if they know you well and you ask for advice, and someone, say you're on the side where you're being asked for advice, this is a two-way street. And I think probably the worst thing that could happen is that someone, humbles themselves to ask, help me. And then when they ask, the person is like, well, I'm so glad you asked me. I have this long list of things about every area of your life that needs to be improved. And they just hit you with this avalanche of information about all the things you're doing wrong or that you could do better. That is not the right way to give advice, right? So if someone's asking about something specific, I feel like what leads people best to their own conclusion is to ask open-ended questions. Come to a collaborative response instead of just going, well, I did this or do this. I think leading people in a conversation where they see the truth for themselves, because most of the time people know what they need to do.
Right.
They're just trying to avoid it because it's going to cost them something.
Yes.
So I think being not so much as the know-it-all, but like, I'm here to help you. These are several options, that you can make going forward.
Right.
But also, just unsolicited advice is criticism. So when people ask you for advice, I think it's important to stick to the subject they ask and not go into every area of their lives.
Yeah.
And say it the way you'd want to receive it. That's what you and
Right.
I practice with each other is how would I want to receive that? Because when you're really close to somebody, you think, I don't have to have all the please and thank you and all the nice stuff. But we really should treat people we're close to even better than strangers.
Sure.
And I think going, how would I want to hear that? And when would I want to hear it?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of really good advice that gets tossed out because it wasn't given in a timely manner. And this is some of the wisdom that you give me a lot. You're like, Amy, that's the right thing to say, but it's not the right place and it's not the right time.
Yeah.
So I think being discerning and patient
Yes.
with that and praying that, if you really care about somebody and you have a word that could help them, like with a spouse or with children or a best friend, whatever, pray for God to open the door.
Yeah.
That's what Esther did. She didn't just charge in there and say, hey, you're killing my people. We're married. What are you doing? She entreated. And then he asked her, what do you want?
Yes.
So I think being sensitive to that is important. We can all learn from that. I know I can.